again, I think a lot of people were very surprised after, well, really starting all the way back at Ultimate 3. A lot of what I do is very geared towards the people that I'm working with, and so Joe Mattiera lended itself to that particular kind of story. I did want to, in talking with Mark Millar, since
I do that all the time.
You know what? I can't understand what the hell he's saying, so he should not understand what I'm saying. That's the way I look at it. Anyway, he and Hitchy did such a great job on Ultimates 1 and 2 that to go on and try to do the same thing again, in the same kind of way, every single time I've gone on a book, it's had a different flavor. The people that were on Batman before Jim Lee and I came on for Hush were not doing that, and they certainly didn't do it after we left. And so, when I came on to the Hulk, it was the same kind of thing. Greg Pak was doing a wonderful job on Planet Hulk and World War Hulks. It's important to shift gears and try to go in a different way. And so Joe Matt and I brought a different flavor to those characters. And then at that time, it was always the plan to, what grew out of that was Ultimatum. And having Dave Finch and being able to tell a story that was that big and it really was intended to be a Roland Emmerich, Michael Bay kind of just giant epic, let's destroy the universe in a way that hadn't, you don't really get to do it. And more importantly, and I think that's the same thing that's happening over in New Ultimates, I was interested in telling a story that is about the aftermath of tragedy, that, you don't usually get to do that in comics. One of the things about comics is that when you do have a big game changer kind of story, that there's a blinding flash of white light, and then all of a sudden, from a editorial point of view, 6 months later,
right?
Well,
it's the new status quo.
Now Oliver Queen is the mayor of Star City, and hang on, kids, because it's gonna be wacky.
Yeah.
I really wanted to tell a story. No, this is what happened the next day. This is how these people tried to pick up their lives and move on, and hopefully it's working. It's one of the fun things about working in the Ultimates is that they're not the characters that are in the Marvel U.
Right.
The characters in the Marvel U, I love what Brian's doing, and Brian has really gotten in and dug deep into who those people are. But the thing about it is, at the end of the day, they are good friends who are working together in order to fight a cause.
Right.
Tony and Steve and Thor, interestingly enough, Thor, don't really have much of a companionship at all.
They're kind of strangers in the
yes.
Ultimate Universe.
And they're on board to do this thing together, but at the end of the day, it's not like they're then going out afterwards and having a drink. When the Avengers woke Cap up, they were like, oh my God, it's Captain America. Like, this is the most unbelievably great thing in the world. In the Ultimates universe, they woke Cap up and Tony was like, perfect, I need someone that can go out and be the banner boy for my team.
Right.
There was no real...
And everybody else is like, this guy's ancient,
right, exactly.
He doesn't know what's going on. Now, I don't want to take things down too much, but you've mentioned Ultimates 3 and you've mentioned Ultimatum, and I'm sure it's no secret to you that they both caught a lot of flack online. Everything that I've seen about the newer books, and especially New Ultimates, I think has had a much better response from both fans and reviewers alike. I mean, for a while you were kind of the popular punching bag online, and even now, like I've read some reviews of New Ultimates where you can tell that people are still trying to be, venomous. I guess I feel like there's a definite different feel from you as a writer on this, and I don't know if maybe it's something that you're going for different, if it's something that's sort of changed around. I don't know if you can...
Well, the funny part about it is, and obviously when we first sat down and started talking about doing this interview, you wanted to go in this direction, and I have been giving it a lot of thought. It literally isn't anything specific. I really appreciate the fact that people react that way. I respect the guys on the line. I'm not going to say that hearing that stuff doesn't bother me. I mean, human being, and obviously if someone keeps throwing rocks at your house, you want to go, hey, it's just my house, guys. But the reality is that there are an awful lot of people who enjoyed those stories as well, and when I do a show and when I get out and and I do my signings and stuff like that, or all those books sold out, all those books went to next printings, and so the power of that is very important to me in terms of being able to get the story out and have people enjoy the story. There are not a lot of people that will openly admit that they enjoyed Transformers, but
that guy right there will.
Okay, but you can't have a movie that's been seen by that many people and not be missing something.
Right.
And it's it's very curious to me because I'm a big fan of some of the smaller books. I'll be more specific because I've actually had this conversation with Ed Brubaker. Ed Brubaker does a book called The Sleeper. Not The Sleeper, Sleeper. I defy you to find a bad review or a bad post about that book. It's a wonderful book. That may be the reason why it is. But we've all talked about it as what is the sleeper effect, which is that book has a very small corridor of what that audience is. Mm-hmm. So if you're reading that book, you love that book because you're not buying that book because you don't even know about that book if you're not buying that book.
Right.
So, but when you get up on something that's as high profile as Hulk or Ultimatum or something like that, you're going to run into a much wider review of people and a much wider review of, let's make Jeph Loeb into a punching bag. That's the thing that's going to happen. I share an office with Jeff Johns, and Jeff and I talked about this, that when he was doing Flash, and it was a low-selling book, he was the darling of everyone. And everyone who read that book loved that book. And then he went and did Infinite Crisis. Well, now he went from a book that not everyone was reading to a book that everyone was reading. And then all of a sudden, everyone had an opinion about Jeff. And not all of it was good. And that's the nature of the business that we're in. The thing about New Ultimates and Ultimate X is that they were stories that I wanted to tell, but they were stories that you couldn't tell until you had gone through the experience of Ultimate 3 and Ultimatum. That the world had to get to a place where it was so loud and so bombastic and so different from what Mark was doing, which I think a lot of people were reacting to, but it was just sort of like, oh wait, we like our peanut butter and jelly like this. We don't want it with grape jelly. We want it with strawberry jelly. That it then blew up. And everyone was like, well, now you've taken away our peanut butter and our jelly. But the reality was that what we were trying to do was to get to a place where, no, what we want to do is
a tuna fish sandwich.
Well, or something that was new that maybe you hadn't ever seen before. The fun of doing comics is that you get to blow up the Avengers Tower, and then the next day the Avengers Tower is all fixed. And
right.
That's how comics are, guys. But in the Ultimate Universe, if you wipe out half of New York, you have to deal with the fact that you wiped out half of New York. And so I think that what you're reading about now is a different world. And so I brought with it a different skill set, which I'm glad people like, but it absolutely was a different change of tone.